Hello everyone, I'm Natalie, and today I will be continuing my Introduction to Astrology series, and I am going to be talking about the major aspects in astrology or in birth charts. The reason I'm making a video on the aspects first is because the aspects are probably the most important thing to look at when you're reading a birth chart. You have to look at the aspects first, because even if you have positive placement in your chart, aspects can kind of determine how they are actually going to play out. So when you're reading a birth chart, you really should look at the aspects first before you look at the actual sign that it's in or the house, because no matter where a planet is, the aspect is going to determine what kind of effect it has on you in your chart. So the first major aspect is the conjunction. Normally conjunctions are between 1 and 11 degrees, which means that the planets are close together in the chart. So say you have your sun at 28 degrees in Libra and your moon at like 25 degrees Libra. That means that's a conjunction. That means that they are close together. So basically what a conjunction does is it blends the energies of the planets together of whatever sign they are in, and it makes it a very like potent aspect of your birth chart. And a conjunction is usually said that it is a easy and harmonious aspect, but I think it can go both ways. It just depends on other aspects around the conjunction and what sign it's in and what house it's in. It just depends, and what planets are there. So like say you have your sun conjunct Jupiter, they say like that's a really good aspect to have in your chart. But again, I think it just goes both ways, because it gives the person confidence and optimism and a lot of luck and attention in their life. It can also be like they could be very reckless because they really just don't care, because their Jupiter's conjunct their sun, so they don't care about maybe some of the consequences of their actions. And I feel like it gives them an overinflated ego because Jupiter is expanding your sun, so it's expanding your ego. So just think about how the planets work together, and then you can kind of see like how the conjunction works. But that's basically what it is. It just depends on the degree. The tighter the orb, which is the degree, the tighter it is, the closer they are, the stronger it's gonna be. And more than one planet can be conjunct too. You can have like your Mercury, Uranus, and Sun, Jupiter all together. That's a stellium, and I'll go more into that later. But you know, that's like a whole blending of all those planets. And I think when you have more than two planets conjunct like that, it can be harder to like pick them apart and actually work with each planet and kind of separate that planet and the own planet's energy from the other ones. So that's where it can be a little challenging, is because it just blends it together, and whatever planets are conjunct are all working together. Some people say that if it's more than 9 degrees, it's not really a conjunction. You just have to look at the chart that comes with your birth chart to see if any planet is forming a conjunction, and then look at the degrees to see how far apart they are. So now the trine is 120 degrees from each other, and it can again be a little bit less, a little bit over. It just depends on your chart. But a trine is a harmonious aspect. Basically a trine is planets within the same element. Say you have your sun in Aries and your moon in Leo. You want to look and see the degrees, but there's a possibility that they could be a trine in your chart. And trines, because it's the same element, the planets are in the same element, they are working together because those planets understand the energy of each other. The planets are in a sign that is harmonious and gets along with the sign of the other planet. So like me, I have my moon in Scorpio trine my Saturn in Pisces. So that means my Saturn is watery and my moon is watery. So they are working together because they are in the same element. They're different signs, but the same element, and they form that degree. So look at the degree. The closer it is to 120 and the closer they are to like the same degree, like say again, if you have like your sun in 15 degrees Aries and your moon 13, 14, 15 degrees in Leo, that's going to be a really tight trine, and they are really going to be like influencing each other. And a trine is less harsh than a conjunction. It is still the blend of the energies because it's like the same element, but it's less harsh. They're working together to do something similar. They're working together to reach a goal, say, wherever they fall in your chart. The second harmonious aspect and positive aspect is the sextile. And the sextile is 60 degrees. And sextiles are like how they say compatibility in astrology, you know, like fire and air can go together and earth and water can go together. That's basically sextiles. So like if you have your sun in Aries and your moon in Gemini, that's fire and air. That is the sextile. I mean, depending on the degree, it's like 60 degrees. So look at the degree and see if they're actually forming that aspect. There is a possibility that they can be. Or like your sun in Taurus and your moon in Cancer, that could be a sextile. Like those signs are sextile to each other. So it's basically the elements can work together. There can be harmony and compatibility with those planets, but those planets are noticing like, okay, there's something different, but we can work it out. That's how you can see those planets. So the difference between a trine and a sextile is a trine is already like just there in your personality, like it's just a part of you, and a sextile is like you can pick up on those characteristics in your personality. It's not really like a part of who you are, a sextile, but it's something that you can access, and it's something that can be beneficial to you in your chart, if that makes any sense. You can access the positive traits of those two signs working together. So sextile is a good aspect, but just like the trine, it's less harsh. So a square is 90 degrees, literally, like think of a square. This is where knowing what cardinal, fixed, and mutable energy is can be helpful in knowing and learning about the square and understanding what the square is. If you don't know what that is, I would suggest watching my video on that. It'll be in my playlist, the quadruplicities. So basically, squares are two planets within the same quadruplicity, like in the same modality. I hate saying that word, so I'll just say quality or modality. So like the cardinal cross or the mutable grand cross or the fixed grand cross, like the cardinal signs Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. Say you have your sun in Aries but your moon is in Cancer, there's a possibility that they are squaring each other. So a square is a really challenging aspect. It's friction. They aren't getting along because it's the same modality, it's the same quality, but they are doing something different that irritates each other. So the planets are going against each other. Mutable signs in squares are a little bit easier to handle because mutable signs can kind of blend. They're more flexible and easygoing, so they can, the planets and mutable signs can, if they're squaring each other, there's a possibility that it won't be as hard. But if you have squares with cardinal signs or fixed signs, yeah, that's gonna be really challenging because those signs are not understanding each other. There's some kind of tension. They can't understand each other. They can't be on the same page. So squares are really hard to work through in a chart. The last challenging aspect is the opposition. I've heard different things. Some people say the opposition is easier than the square, and some people say the square is easier than the opposition. I could see both. I've heard both. The opposition, you have to know the partner signs and the opposite signs, because every sign has a partner sign and an opposition. So the opposition is basically when you have two planets in opposing signs, and it's 180 degrees. That means they are looking at each other. They are right across from each other. So say you have your sun in Virgo and your moon in Pisces. When people have their sun opposite their moon, they're born on a full moon. So it's like your sun and your moon are acting completely different. They are opposing each other. They are looking at each other. And I've heard that with an opposition, there is an understanding of the challenging aspects, so maybe it is easier for the planets to get along. And in a square, they just can't. Like, it's like useless to try to get them to blend and work together. It's more challenging. And in opposition, planets can probably benefit from each other from the differences, because I do think that partner signs and opposite signs kind of need each other because opposites attract. If you have planets in opposition in your chart, it is going to be challenging because the planets are doing completely different things. But recognizing that, you can kind of see where one planet lacks and the other planet, has naturally. So maybe you can kind of like in your chart, you can kind of work something out with those planets, but it is going to be challenging because the planets are in opposing signs, and opposite signs just have a harder time working together. So learn about the signs, look at the aspects first, and then look at the signs that the planets are in and they're aspecting, and learn about the signs. Watch my sun sign videos if you don't know much about the signs, to learn about how each sign works so that you can really see how the planets are acting together. But the aspect is what you should look at first. So I hope that this was somewhat helpful. Ask me questions if you need help. I can make more videos. I'll make another video on the minor aspects later, but these are the major aspects that are important in your chart, the ones that you should look at first. The minor aspects I'll go into later. So let me know if you need help, and thank you for watching.